what is moral and ethical behavior, and even if we're unable to reach something which is an absolute definitive conclusion, at least we'll become heightened in our sensitivity. A greater sense of heightened sensitivity towards all people, I think hopefully will make us better individuals, and that really is the purpose of the Torah. As I like to quote this a lot, so if you've heard it before, I apologize. But Rav Moshe Feinstein, 3 cycles ago at the Siyum Shas in New York, said the question we ask ourselves tonight isn't how many times we went through Shas, how many times we went through Gemara, but how much Shas went through us, and how much did it impact our lives and who we are and what we are. So that's an important message to consider. Okay, all of that introduction. Here we go. The 3rd page in this little booklet, which is really the 2nd page, has a number of dilemmas in it. So let's go through a couple of these dilemmas, and you tell me what you think. Here we go. Dilemma number 1. Before going to a party, we'll come back to that top story later. Case 1. Before going to a party, your friends ask you to come over and take a look at their new dress or suit. You're not particularly fond of what they're wearing. What do you say when they ask you for your opinion? Explain. Would it make a difference if they were to ask you at the party while you were dancing? Why or why not? So what do you think? What are your thoughts? Someone asks you, hey, I just got this new suit. See this beautiful dress? What do you think? I want your opinion on my clothing. What would you... The guy's engineering, like, well, clothes. We don't deal with clothes. We're engineers. Right. What? Oh, I didn't mean like... Right? I don't know how many of you are like fashion, sensitive here. But,
I would say...
Yes.
If they're able to return it to the store.
Okay.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Then you should say, you could give them your honest opinion and say, I don't really like it. Yeah, I mean, look, not that they have to return it, even if you say that you don't like it.
Right.
But I think you should give them, meaning if they can do something about it, then
okay.
you should give your honest opinion.
There's a 2-week policy of returning an item to a store. I bought this yesterday. I bought it for a party that's in 10 days from now. There's plenty of time. You want my honest opinion? Here's my honest opinion. I actually think you should return it.
I would say if your friend was the kind of person who would appreciate an honest opinion, then you
okay. So you're saying the question is the context. Who is this person? How much do they care about? So here's important, ladies and gentlemen. This is an important question in life. When someone asks a question, especially those that you do this to your employees and your employers, your husband, your wife, your spouse, your friends. People ask a question. You always have to ask yourself, what's the real question they're asking? You follow? Sometimes people ask a question and they say, do you like what I'm wearing? What are they really asking?
Tell me that I look good.
Tell me that I look good. They're looking for validation. They're not really interested in your fashion sense. They want to be validated. So if they're really asking for your opinion, then maybe they want it. But if they're not, so you need to be very sensitive and listen carefully, right? So what exactly are they asking? And why are they asking? And that's, by the way, that's an important life skill. Very important life skill. Sometimes I get questions, people ask me halachic questions. That's not really the question. It is the technical question, but there's a lot more behind it that sometimes is really being asked. Right? So I think that's a complicated, that's difficult, but I think that's okay. What about, and that's why the scenario is why I kind of added another facet to it, and that is they're at the bar mitzvah, they're at the wedding, they're at the simcha, they're at the dance party, whatever it is, they're asked you the question at the event itself. What would you do?
You should lie.
You should lie.
Yeah.
Straight out lie. And what do you say? Do you like what? Do you like my new tie? And you say?
You look
yes.
good.
You look good. Okay, so by the way, those are 2 different answers.
Okay.
What?
I wouldn't lie.
What would you say?
I would just say I didn't like it. You could have wear something better.
You could. Nice. See, this is a guy's honest, man.
If he really asks my opinion, I will say my opinion and my real opinion.
Not
Being a good friend.
nothing like politically correct. Say it like it is.
Yeah.
Your tie is just ugly. Your suit is ugly. Now,
Like, it's, I can rephrase that better, but like,
okay.
the basic idea is that, yeah.
Okay, fine. Now, what we had two people say here, two different things. One is that you look good versus like your tie. They're not the same. Maybe this was the answer we're looking for. What's the difference between saying your tie looks nice or is beautiful? You know, I was going to buy the exact same tie yesterday at the store. Versus you look good.
Yeah, the first one's lying. The second one.
Okay, the first one is lying. That's called sheker. And the second one is
Avoiding
avoiding the question.
Omission.
Now, you could look good with it. What about actually someone after I gave this, I spoke about this yesterday at York. Someone said they overheard my conversation, and they said they had this terrible dilemma at a party that they went to. It was a bar mitzvah, and one of the women there ripped the back of her shirt, and it tore the material. You know, like sometimes if you lean against something, like if like a nail, so it could like tear your. So she had a tear in her back, and you could actually see her back. Do you tell her or not?
That I think is simpler because it's not a comment on her,
Right.
the way she's looking, or even like her choice in clothing. It's something bad.
It's unfortunately bad luck. You rip your clothes,
And-
right?
You're just informing
Maybe do
them of
something.
something external to them that
Right.
happened to them.
Now, what about she'd be like more like horrified and like embarrassed?
She
But
probably.
if it's something that everyone can see, then
Right.
Right, then you
Right.
probably.
She might realize it after and then be like,
Right.
oh my god.
How could no one tell me?
Nobody
Right.
told me. People
Right.
usually
Yes.
usually want.
Yeah, this is actually a true story. This is many years ago, true story. Over 10 years ago for sure. I actually had a zipper break. A zipper broke. I was wearing pants, a zipper broke, and I was teaching at the time at a girls' school. And I don't remember exactly what the scenario was, but let's say I taught 3 classes, and this was already after the first class, and I had like 2 hours left to go. You can't just be like a teacher, oh, I'm going to like leave now, right? You can't do that, right? I mean, you could under some circumstances. I didn't think that. So, you know, I had to like sit for most of the time, which, you know, so you become more conscious of it in order to, you know, avoid it. But, you know, sometimes you're in these embarrassing situations that you have to kind of just deal with. Does it matter if you say to the person that their tie is really, I like your tie versus you look good? Let's say you've decided, as opposed to Yoel over there, he disagrees with this. But let's say you think you want to tell that person not the truth that it's ugly. Does it matter how, once you've concluded this person will be embarrassed and upset and distraught by telling them that their tie is ugly, you're not going to tell them that. What would you tell them? Or does it matter?
I think there's always a way you can get around it. So say you think generally they're not wearing something nice, so you can focus in on the tie. Say it's a nice tie, and like avoid more global comments about what's going on. Or you can do the opposite.
Does it matter?
If they're wearing a really ugly tie, you say, "Well, I like the rest of it."
Okay.
Because, I mean, they're both kind of avoiding the question, but sometimes I guess.
Is one preferred over the other, do you think? From a Jewish law, halachic perspective, does it matter?
Technically, maybe it's good to avoid an outright lie if you can.
Okay.
Maybe it doesn't.
I want to give one more case, and then we're going to. Here we go. Maybe 2 more cases. We'll jump to case 3. Moshe is traveling to Israel with his family. When Moshe's family arrived at the airport, someone from airline security was asking his parents a lot of questions. One of the questions they were asked was, does everything that you're taking to Israel belong to you and your family? His parents responded, yes. At that moment, Moshe realized that before he left, Shimon gave him a small package of candy delivered to their common friend in Israel. And his parents don't know about the package. Should he speak up and tell the security guard that there is something that does not belong to the family? Wait, hello security, wait. No, there's an object that I have that we don't own or pack.
I don't seem to have that ethical dilemma.
What do you think? The ethical dilemma. What would you do in such a case? Say something, not say something?
Saying, will he get in trouble? Because, like, it's not like he's bringing out candy, you know?
But you don't
he
know
get
that.
in trouble? Yeah. Like it wouldn't.
What do you think? Would you say something? You're that kid.
Like,
Your parents just said, what do you mean? Everything we packed their own. And you're like, wait, that candy tray, the candy dish. that I'm giving to my friend Jakey.
I won't say something.
You would?
Yeah, I would only if my parents were like encouraging me not to tell lies. Otherwise, it will be like contradicting.
Wait, if your parents lie all the time, so then you wouldn't say anything. If your parents don't lie, then
no. If my parents tell me not to lie, then I will speak because that's why they want. That's what they want. That's what the ethical.
So you're saying the real thing you should do is to speak up. That's what you're saying is that what you really should do is speak up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it's not really lying if you don't speak up because your parents don't know what's in there. So when your parents are telling the security guard that they didn't pack it, like...
Right, okay, that is a very good point. Because your parents, from their perspective, are telling the truth. They have no idea, right? But you know the truth. Do you have an obligation to speak up?
Well, not a security obligation if you know that it's like a thing.
Right, okay, so that's interesting. Yeah.
When it comes to something that trivial, the security, like, they'll probably prefer not to waste their time. Like,
so, this isn't really that related, but I went to, I was traveling with my family last year for Pesach, and then we know that you got the press those buttons on the screen? Like, yes, yes, no, no, no. So I wasn't paying attention. I was like, just. So, to the question of do you have any firearms, I press yes. You know what I mean? Go over there, right? But they actually were really nice about it. They're like, oh, I have this all the time, sir. Don't worry about it. And I thought they were going to, like, rip me to shreds. But I guess, and the rationale is, if you were really a terrorist, and you really did have firearms, you're not going to say that you do, right? So I guess that's the... Just not the case. Why would you even ask it?
Right. Well, they also just don't want you to take them on the plane. Like if you're from the States.
Well, from the States. But they're asking me this question in Toronto. Right. That's what I never understood. Like, if you're a real terrorist, you're going to say no. And if you don't have one, you're also going to say no. So why ask the question? Anyways, but that's not for now. Okay. Flip the page, please. Page number 1. To the beginning. We have a tension that exists. We have a tension between truth and between peace. Between emet and between shalom. Because sometimes the truth prevents shalom from existing. Sometimes if I speak the truth, it's going to cause a lack of peace and tranquility. When I have two conflicting values, which value do I highlight? How do I highlight it? And how do I respond to these challenges? So let me, because obviously everyone agrees you should try and maintain both values. You should try to maintain peace, and you should try to maintain truth. But the question is, when they clash, how do you deal with that tension? Comes along source number 2. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Ilai Mishum Elazar ben Shimon, Mutar lo ladam lishanot b'dvar shalom, which one I can follow in English underneath. Shenamar avicha tziva kotor muli Yosef anasana. Just to give that context, the opinion is it is permitted to deviate, because it's interesting here. It doesn't say lishaker. What word is used? Not lishaker, but it says lishanot. Lishanot means to deviate, to change. So says this first opinion, you're allowed to alter the text. Source number 2 tells us you're allowed to alter what you say for peace. What's the proof? The brothers, when Jacob dies, when Yaakov dies, the brothers turn to Joseph, turn to Yosef and say, Dad made us swear that we'd come to you after he dies, that you will not take and seek vengeance on us. Now, we don't have any record of that anywhere in the Torah. That Jacob told his sons, approach Joseph when I die, make sure there's going to be peace. So, seemingly from here, what did the brothers do? They concocted it themselves in order so that Joseph wouldn't seek vengeance for the fact that the brothers sold Joseph. And therefore, the Talmud says, we see here's an example of where you can alter the truth. And that's a very strange proof. Why? Is that altering the proof? Isn't that called concocting a proof? That's lying. It's not lying. So interesting. The gun that Talmud gives does not seem to be one of deviating. It seems to be one of outright lying. Avicha tziva, your father commanded. We don't see anywhere the father commanded. Second statement. Rav Natan Omer, second line in source 2. Mitzvah. It is obligatory to change in order for peace. As it says, so Shmuel the prophet was asked to appoint David as a king. Shaul was the king at the time. And if Shaul would have heard that Shmuel was anointing a new king, that would not make Shaul very happy. And so when Shaul would ask Shmuel, hey, where are you going? Shmuel would say, I'm going for a spatzir, I'm going for a walk. Don't say your real purpose. And not only that, who says this? God. If God tells Shmuel to do this, it's a mitzvah, it's a obligatory, not like it's a nice thing to do. But you're obligated to keep the peace. The last statement is the Bei Rabbi Shmuel Tane Gadol Shalom Shosh Baruch Shinabo, as it says in the pasuk V'adu Nizaken V'Lasof Ktiv Nizakanti. I will explain. God tells Sarah, the angel, I should say, tells Sarah, "Hey, Sarah, you're going to have a child." Sarah says, "What? My husband's an old man." When God repeats the story to Abraham, that, oh, by the way, Sarah laughed, which she did, when she heard about this news. God omits. Oh, and by the way, you know what else Sarah did? Sarah said, you're an old man. God omits those words. What's the rationale, says the Talmud? To keep peace between husband and wife. If Abraham would have heard that Sarah insulted him, that might have caused tension. So God omits, when he recounts the conversation, he omits perhaps the words that would affect Abraham. Okay. Talmud says, how great is peace? You're even allowed to change your language in order to attain peace, as we saw that God did. Okay, so how do we deal? So it appears from here, you know what you should do? You should alter for peace. Now, what about lie for peace? So interesting. According to Jewish law, there's actually a true hierarchy. Obviously, you should tell the truth. If you're not able to tell the truth because it will create, now, by the way, this is a great issue. You know, like, oh, what will cause turmoil or anger or get someone upset or distraught? It's a little bit subjective. And you always try to minimize your lying. Omit something, change, right? I mean, it probably is better to say, you look good, than to say, your tie is my favorite. It's not so simple because of this following case. Flip the page. Everyone knows, a lot of people are familiar with this and they sing a song, but this is the context, which is quite important. Source number 7. I'll read the Hebrew, the Aramaic, you can follow in English if you like. Turn it by now. How do you dance in front of the bride? Or the real question appears to be, when dancing in front of the bride, what do? It says, Bet Shammai kala kamo shehi. You praise her like she is. I like your dress. I don't like your dress. You're pretty. You're not pretty. Like it is. It says Bet Shammai, say it like it is. He's from Turkey. I don't know, right? Oh, but Hillel says, no. Kala na'ev chasuda. So we only know this. Case of the Kala, right? We only know Bet Hillel. We don't know Bet Shammai, right? Somehow the case of the Kala kamo shehi doesn't seem to go so well. But what's the language? It says Beis Hillel. She has pretty and she has grace. Na'ev chasuda. Now, continues the Talmud. Amar Bet Shammai Beis Hillel. Bet Shammai turns to Bet Hillel and says, Harei shaita chigeret asuma amrim la kala chasuda. What about if she's lame or she's blind? You're going to then go to this bride and say, hey bride, you're so graceful and pretty. You're a great dancer. Meanwhile, unfortunately, she's missing a limb. The Torah says, midvar sheker tirchak. You must, now this is interesting language, by the way, midvar sheker, from falsehood, tirchak. What's tirchak? Distance. Amar Lechem Beit Hillel Bet Shammai lo. It says Beit Hillel Bet Shammai l'divrechem mishla kach mekach min hashuk. If someone goes and wants to a store and buy something, right? They're purchasing something. Don't you praise what they bought? Meaning, if you're actively choosing something, it must mean that you find it. If you're choosing to purchase this phone over another phone, that means you think this phone is good, beneficial, If a person is choosing this bride to marry, it must be that what does the groom think? That she's attractive. So says Beit Hillel, why are you allowed to say she's a kala na'eva chasuda? What's the rationale behind it? Because
Important to get along.
no, because the husband must think that. You follow? Meaning, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Someone thinks this is not a lie. But to say a lie, but this is not a lie. She is kala ne'eva chasuda. Maybe not in my eyes, maybe not in the eyes of 99% of the population, but there's someone who sees her in this fine light. That's Beit Hillel. And then Beit Hillel says something which is, I think, quite important. Says Beit Hillel at the end, Mikan amru chachamim, what do our sages tell us? Lo'olam teidato shel adam urevet im habriot. A person should always be amiable. A person needs to be friendly. A person needs to interact in society, people. Don't live on some ivory tower disconnected from human beings. You have to be murav, mixed in with the briot. Very interesting. So, for those who want to glean from here, two things. One, what's Beit Hillel saying? Beit Hillel could have fulfilled the not lying just by saying what? Not Eva Chasuda. Neva Chasuda is prettiness, grace. Beit Hillel could have just said Kala Yafa, Kala Nechmeda. Like, you know. There are those who say, especially to a bride who's clearly very sensitive towards her appearance, not that you're obligated to say certain things to make them feel better. Because, by the way, I don't think she can change her dress. I don't think she can really change her appearance 2 minutes before the chuppah. That's not going to happen. So if they want she wants to be validated. She wants to think of herself as attractive. She wants to think of herself in a positive light. You say, Kala na'eva chasuda. As opposed to Kala kamo shehi. Against Beit Shammai. So, I think that, yeah, but Shammai is not saying call her ugly. Hey, ugly. No. He says just say it. But I think the chiddush of Beit Hillel is that you're even allowed to go almost over the top, and that's not considered lying. Not eva chasuda. What's also interesting is look at the pasuk that's quoted. Midvar sheker tirchak. If I wanted to tell you don't lie, how would I phrase it? What language is used in the Torah for the language of a lotase? Don't. Anyone learned this before? Either al, pen, or lo. Right? There are 3 languages the Torah uses for a negative commandment. Why is midvar sheker tirchak? Distance yourself. What do you mean distance yourself? It's very. Why not say don't lie? So you could tell me, well, that's very simple because I already told you that. That's in source number 4. Source number 4 says, Lo tignavu, don't steal. Lo techachashu, don't deal falsely. Lo teshakru, don't lie. Ish b'mita, one to another. Maybe when it says here's a violation. Lo teshakru, don't lie. But everyone understands this verse not in that way. There only are 2 ways you violate probably the biblical prohibition, at least according to this pasuk. What do I mean? According to Canadian law, you could only be charged if you lie in 2 areas. 1,
under oath.
Very good. That is called
Perjury.
Perjury. Perjury means I swear under oath. That is lying under oath is perjury. That is a criminal offense. And the other way I can be criminally charged with lying is called fraud. But in order to be charged with fraud, someone has to lose money because of my lying. Right? If I say, oh my goodness, Dahlia, you don't understand, you need to buy this house. You understand? You're going to make a fortune, right? Here's the evidence, here's the proof, and I'm absolutely lying. She buys the house. It really was my sister's house, and she made a lot of money off of it, right? Fraud. I just saw somebody, they settled yesterday, 2 days ago in court. Some person frauded someone of 10 Blue Jay playoff tickets.
Oh, yeah.
I just saw yesterday, and it popped up somewhere, right, where someone promised, right, they paid for them, never got their tickets, charged with fraud, just pleaded guilty, right? So there you go, fraud, because there was a monetary loss. Right? If I get outside and I tell people at U of T, oh my goodness, the sky is purple, and the sky is blue, which it really isn't blue, but anyways, that doesn't matter for now, right? That's not a criminal offense. What? That's because I'm crazy. But downtown Toronto, anything goes. So it doesn't really matter, right? So, but if you claim something that leads to fraud or perjury, that is criminal offense for lying. This pasuk is probably referring to a monetary loss. Look at the context. Don't steal. Don't deal falsely. Right? So this is probably economic lying. That's how I want to explain it. And economic lying you're never allowed to do. I mean, that's going to save a guy's life, but I don't see how you're going to, right? So perjury and fraud, you're not doing perjury and fraud. But maybe one can say, source number 5, midvar sheker tirchak, says when you deal with human interactions, distance yourself from lying. Don't lie. Distance from it. But there's no don't do it, because you know why? There may be times where you have to lie. Or say a half-truth. And you'll be obligated to do that if it's going to offend or hurt somebody. I want to end with a crazy case, which is source number 8. I'm going to actually throw out there source number 7.5, which is just a dot, is to be very careful when you lie around children. In fact, you might have to be more strict and not even say a half-truth around the child, because they're not sensitive and they don't pick that up. To them, half-truth is actually a lie. So be very careful when parents speak, what they say, what the kid can pick up. Just, oh, your parents aren't home. They really are home. Right? Be very careful. Source number 8. All people do this outside. There's a true story. It happened in, I don't remember if it was the late 70s or early 80s. A lady who was 24 years old was getting married. Came from a very Haredi, ultra-Orthodox background, was getting married to a guy in Kollel. However, this young lady did not always lead such a lifestyle. She, when she was in her early 20s, was promiscuous. But in her college days, right, she was not an Orthodox Jew. She changed her ways, fine. But here's what is crazy. When she was 20, when she was young, she actually was pregnant, and she had an abortion. Why does it matter? Because now that she's married to this guy who's in Kollel, they had a baby boy. And not only do you have a bris when there's a baby boy, but if neither the mother or the father is a Cohen or a Levi, and it's a regular vaginal birth as opposed to C-section, then you also have what's called the Pidyon Haben. You have to this was Parsha. You have to redeem this baby at day 30. There's a whole ceremony that you go through. The ceremony consists of 2 parts. One is in Aramaic, which basically the Kohen ascertains that this is truly a baby that is obligated to redeem. The Kohen says, what do you want, your baby or money? The father, as far as I know, always says, my baby, gives money to the Kohen. The father recites 2 different blessings, 2 different brachos. One is Al Pidyon Haben, and the other one is Shechianu. There's an exchange, and we're Jewish, so we have a dinner. And Ashkenazim do it at nighttime, Sfarim do it in the morning. That's not for now. So this lady turns to her local rabbi and says, what am I going to do? Now forget like marriage counseling, like if you date someone, you should maybe tell them certain things. Forget all that for now. That's not this topic. Right? But this lady turns to the local rabbi and says, local rabbi, what do I do? My husband thinks there's going to be a Pidyon Haben in a couple weeks. But really there should not be a Pidyon Haben because I was pregnant and I had an abortion 3 years ago. What do you do? Now, what happens? Let's go through this scenario. If you do have the Pidyon Haben and you didn't need to, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with having a Pidyon Haben when you didn't need to?
Well, you're saying 2 brachas.
You're saying 2 brachas later. Now, Shechanu bracha is a really easy one. And you fruit in your pocket. So,
but the other one.
The other one is all Pidyon Haben is all Pidyon Haben. What else might be a problem with the having a pidyon ben, you don't need one?
You're misleading the Kohen.
Very good. You're misleading the Kohen. You're misleading all the guests. She is tricking her husband. Right? There's a whole ethical, and not only that, but there's a real exchange from the father and the Kohen. Just, yes, this is my firstborn from this lady, right? That's not true. No, but from this lady. It goes by her, not by him. What's the flip side? If she were to go to her husband, and we can have for Pidyon Ben saying, I got some news to tell you. There is no Pidyon Ben. Again, maybe he'll divorce her, or scream at her, yell at her, beat her, I don't know, whatever it is, right? This is the late 70s, early 80s in Jerusalem. It's not, it's a different world. What do you do? So this local rabbi said, I'm not answering this question. I'm sending it to a guy who has very big shoulders. It's the name of Rabbi Yosef. And Yabia Omer, and that's source number 8. So the English doesn't have the answer, but I will tell you the answer because the Hebrew does have the answer. What? It's a great question. No, it's a great question. What do you do? Rabbi Yosef says, listen, again, by the way, so you have here 12 lines in Hebrew. This is 9 full pages of text. So this is a very complicated case. So he goes through a discussion, and he says, the issue of reciting God's name in vain is a biblical prohibition. But the father is not violating the biblical prohibition. Because from his perspective, this is not in vain. Right? He thinks he's doing the right thing. Why is he doing it? He's doing it because of onus. It's against his will. He's not doing it, it's not his fault that he's doing it. The only time you violate, he says, a biblical prohibition is when you do. That's his argument. So he says this is a rabbinic, saying God's name in vain. This is a rabbinic God's name in vain situation. Potentially, and again, you have to know the situation. Strife between husband and wife, intention, all that is of biblical importance. It's min Torah. Husband and wife, relationships, this and that. So he said the following. Ideally, if you can avoid the exchange between the Kohen and the father, which is in Aramaic, which is mumbling and no one listens to that anyways, which Rav says is an outright lie, meaning maybe tell the Kohen, again, you have to be careful, tell the Kohen not to do this part, you have to be careful, else and give it away, whatever, you have to weigh out those things. But in terms of actually reciting these brachot, he said, in this case, you would actually be permitted to go ahead and still have the Pidyon Ben service in order to not avoid the lack of shalom and disharmony that might take place for the truth to come out. So here we have tension between truth, between emet, and between shalom, and between peace. And we see here that it's peace, it's shalom that prevails. That doesn't mean you're allowed to lie, right? But what it means is that lying, sheker, is something which is midvar sheker techa, lo teshakru. It's taken quite seriously. You have to always be truthful. And sometimes it's much easier to lie, or sometimes it's much easier to tell a half-truth. And really, I think what the message is, no, often confront the person, tell the truth, just say, I messed up. I should have done this. I said I was going to do it, instead of trying to weasel out of it by lying and saying half-truth, like a lot of, like politicians do, right? They just say things, but they're never answering the question. They dart around the truth, right? They answer things in like hyperboles or very, open-ended, right? Which is not appropriate. You're not supposed to deal that way. However, if it deals with issues of peace and tranquility between husband and wife, between families, between good friends, there might be room to perhaps say at least an omission. And under major extreme circumstances, you even would be allowed to lie. And someone actually pointed out yesterday, Aaron Cohen would do that. Aaron Cohen would go over to one person who was fighting and say, oh, by the way, that guy wants to make peace with you, even though it wasn't true. Then you go to the other person and say, he wants to make peace with you, and then they would. So we see here that you're even allowed to almost preempt telling someone of a non-truth. Because again, it's not lying, right? Everyone wants to make amends, right? Deep down inside. But you'd be even allowed to almost preempt these things in order to truly bring peace and tranquility, ava v'achva, and shalom v'reyut to all of the families, to people, and to the entire world. Thank you, everybody.